and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I am back for more VBAC fun, and we are going to be talking about all the ways that you can set yourself up prior to your birth for a successful VBAC and the things you can do to pursue that vaginal birth after cesarean. But before I do that, don't forget to subscribe down below so that you never miss another video that I am putting out as quickly as I possibly can. If you haven't seen video number 1 related to VBAC, go ahead and go over there. I'll link it up above and go ahead and watch that first because this video builds off of that one. I also just want to note really quickly, because this has come up super regularly, that I have other education. I have full classes. I have a coping with labor class on my website at bundlebirth.com, so feel free to go there and check that out and find more resources from me. Let's get started. Well, hello, I'm back. I will just say that I have a special place in my heart related to VBAC. Birth is very rewarding for me, but there's something special about having walked the journey of getting a couple ready or a woman ready for her VBAC and then her actually getting it when she so wanted it so badly. And I think when there's a history of a C-section, maybe that you weren't expecting or you didn't plan for or maybe you didn't want, that to finally get to prove to yourself that you can do it vaginally is very, very rewarding. You VBAC mamas have a special place in my heart, and so my goal for today is to help you to have that successful VBAC, to do everything within your power, within your control to set you up for that VBAC. And I hold my hands out because I did talk about in one of my coffee and questions video, I can't remember if it was the first or the second, about this picture that I have on both my Instagrams of your hands just being open, picking up what you can control and letting the sand fall through the way that it should. And so as with everything in life, that is my approach to VBAC. So even if you do all of these things right, that doesn't always mean that you're still gonna get that vaginal birth. That goes for women who've not even had a C-section in the past, that you can control what you can and then you have to let go of the rest. And so what are the things that you can control? That's what we're talking about today. I would say probably the most important thing that you can control when you're setting yourself up for that vaginal birth is your doctor / care team / hospital that you choose. Now, some of you may not have a choice. You may be limited to your insurance provider or the location that you're in. But I just as a consideration to make when you are given a choice, that your doctor really does matter. So I did mention in the first video a little bit about this, but just to recap, that you want a provider that approaches VBACs not in fear, but in really giving you a fair chance. There's one thing for a provider to say that like, oh yeah, like you can VBAC, but I induce at 39 weeks, or if you haven't gone into labor by 39 weeks, then you're having a C-section. That doesn't really mean that they're super supportive of VBAC. If they're like, yep, I will let you go, and whenever you go into labor, you go into labor, or maybe they have a threshold, like at 41 weeks, they will induce you, whatever their rationale is, I'm not gonna put words in their mouth, that they would have, first of all, had a history of doing VBACs, meaning they've had clients or patients that have had successful VBACs, and then asking some strategic questions about not only how often do you do a VBAC, but what's the VBAC rate in the hospital? Does the hospital support VBACs, or is everybody gonna be super scared about you as a patient and treat you like this anomaly in the hospital? Ideally, you want a place that supports VBACs regularly, that feels comfortable with it, that's going to be watching for signs of complications, but isn't going to create an environment of you feeling on guard or scared or insecure, which is not going to help the labor process for you. Them supporting you and then also being able to help you with tools to help you get to a vaginal birth. That means changing positions regularly. That means having protocols in place for safety, but also for helping to balance the whole like fear and safety to allowing for you to have options in laboring, such as movement or different types of monitors or other things that is a whole nother class. So you can ask those questions from your provider. What's their VBAC rate? What's their C-section rate? And then what's the VBAC rate in your hospital? Now, if you're given the choice between two hospitals, you might want to go with the one with the higher VBAC rate. The other thing is though, if you don't really have the choice, that may not help you in your decision making, because then you're just like, oh my gosh, the VBAC rate is 2%. You want to balance freaking out and giving yourself too much information with having enough information that it can actually help you. Just something to think about. Another thing that I would highly suggest to you is your own physical, mental preparation for your VBAC. Fear has an impact on your birth. The hormones of fear, adrenaline in particular, actually counteracts your labor hormones. And so when your fear is super duper high, it can slow down labor. It can prevent you from going into labor. How much? Flex and flow on that one. But ideally, you want to be able to walk into your birth feeling totally open, totally off guard and able to just engage with your body and not be thinking about yourself as a VBAC person, but instead be thinking about that I am laboring. I am here, I'm engaged with the process, and I've processed through my previous birth and what happened with it enough to be able to let it go and walk into this birth feeling like it's a completely new experience. That to me is one of the biggest things that I end up doing with clients, and what I do in my VBAC class is help you process what the experience was, make sense of it sometimes, answer some of your questions clinically. And so if you haven't done that before and maybe you had a really traumatic first birth, it is really important that you talk about it with an expert, that you process through the memory with your partner, with your support team, with your doctor, so that you can close that memory up in a nice little box and then move into the next one, recognizing that it's a whole different experience. Your preparation is really important. The other thing is that there's lots of information out there related to VBAC. VBACfacts.com is one of my favorite resources related to VBAC. I also have a one-on-one VBAC class that you can take with me. You just need to go to bundlebirth.com and then reach out and we'll set up a Skype date. So learn about VBAC as much as you can. Watch these videos, understand the risks so that you can walk into your birth being off guard and just engage with the process and really believe that you are laboring, you aren't VBACing, which I think can get into your head a little bit. The other one is, I'm always gonna say, is support. That I see as a nurse and I see as a doula that the women who have the support do better. And this goes just in general, that like when you have a doula in particular, you do have a higher rate of a vaginal birth, that you have that continuous mental support to let go of your fears and anxieties, and then also reassure you, give you knowledge and help with helping labor to progress. And so that support is gonna be really important. Now, maybe you can't hire a doula, that's fine. Your partner is your doula, your mom can be your doula, your best friend, but the idea would be that you never felt alone, that you were able to just engage with one another and labor off guard, letting your care team take care of watching for those signs of uterine rupture or any other complications that are happening, and just kind of letting that go into their hands and then engaging with the labor in yourself. The goal is never feeling alone, so set yourself up to not feel alone. Some other kind of thoughts related to setting yourself up for that successful VBAC. First of all, there are some things that statistically, and when we start talking statistics, I have a little soapbox to get on, so I'll get on that in just a second. But there are some statistical things that are going to make you more likely or less likely to deliver vaginally or have a successful VBAC. Now, before I get into the whole statistics thing, I do want to just disclaim that you are not a statistic, you are your own self, that as much of maybe you have all of the risk factors for it not working, that doesn't mean that you can't have a successful VBAC. And so there are considerations to think about when walking into your VBAC, or just kind of know in the back of your mind. Some of them are controllable, some of them are not. There are things that kind of set you up and make you more or less likely to have the vaginal birth. There is online a statistical calculator, and I've actually seen providers use this a lot in the office, where they'll say, like, they'll put in all your stats, your height, your weight, your BMI, your age, if you've had a previous birth, your race, all these things, and then it comes up with this number that says like you have a 40% chance of a successful VBAC. I, personal opinion, disclaimed here, I don't know how helpful that is. I think if your number comes out at like 80%, which rarely does it ever, I think when I put in myself, and I don't even have a C-section in the past, I still only have like an 80% chance of a VBAC. And so my fear for the whole statistical calculator thing is that it gets it in your head that you aren't going to be successful. And that really doesn't help you. If you choose to walk into your birth pursuing that VBAC, you need to be just fully committed to it and not so fearful that, oh, what if? So I think that's one of the risks of the VBAC calculator, is that it comes out super low. You're like, oh, I'm not going to have one. I've gotten phone calls from clients who are like, I was in my doctor's office and they put in all the numbers and they said it's only 30% and blah, blah, blah. And they're having this meltdown thinking it's never going to happen for them, when sure enough, with the right support and education, they go on to have a vaginal birth after cesarean. Now, for some of you, you may be like, I don't even care. I just want to know, out of pursuing more information. That's perfectly fine. I will put that in the box below and you can click on that link and go and put in your stats if you would like, but that's my disclaimer related to that. You are not a statistic. The other things, and these are contributed into that calculator thing. First of all, if you've had a baby before, you do have a higher chance of having a successful VBAC. And I hate the word success, because you're not a success if you don't have a VBAC. So So hear me out here. That's just for lack of a better word of having the VBAC versus the CBAC, which is a cesarean birth after cesarean. If you've had one before, we call you that you have a proven pelvis. That's medical terminology, meaning we know that babies fit through you, that all things considered, you should be able to have another baby vaginally. The other thing is if you're under 40 for whatever reason, statistically, that you have a higher chance of it being successful. When you're over 40, there may be a higher chance that you may not be successful. Some other things that make you more likely are if labors start on their own. So ideally, you're avoiding that induction. Again, this kind of goes back to the induction video, that induction is artificial. It means your body is not chosen to be ready on their own, and so we help you to have your baby. So I kind of by common sense, if your body goes into labor on its own, it's decided that it's going to do it, and in theory, you're moving your way towards delivery. Which leads me to the second piece of this is that if it begins on its own and it continues to progress normally. So ideally when your labor starts, you start having contractions, they get stronger and stronger and stronger, your cervix dilates and continues to dilate over time versus you start having contractions and then they peter out and then you have more contractions and you get into active labor, which is 6 centimeters, and then they kind of peter out and you're at 6 centimeters for another 4 hours. What we call your labor curve would be abnormal, that you're not moving towards delivery. It's like, and we're like, come on, delivery, let's get you there very slowly. So we want you to progress on your own, which means that your body decided to do it and it's moving you towards delivery. You have a higher chance of a vaginal birth related to that, which actually makes a lot of sense to me because one of the biggest reasons why people have a C-section is because they just don't dilate. And so if you're moving towards delivery, meaning you're like, your cervix is changing and dilating, then you don't have that reason for a C-section, if that makes sense. And then I already said this, but when you're looking at the chances calculator, that to have continuous labor support does contribute to better outcomes. That could be a partner, but ideally that is a doula. I do tell my VBAC clients that if you, or if they're my client, then they've already hired me. I tell patients and I tell anybody that I meet that's asking about a VBAC or my classes for VBAC that if you don't have a doula, you need a doula. If you really are committed to that vaginal birth, a doula is going to be an investment that hopefully will be worth it to help set you up for that vaginal birth. Now, on the flip side of things, some things that can make you less likely are going to be if labor doesn't start on its own, so you have an induction. If you've had more than one cesarean, like particularly related to what's the reason for the other cesareans, that can contribute. If you're over 40, if you're considered obese, or if the baby is weighing over 8 pounds, 13 ounces, or 4,000 grams. Again, go to my coffee and questions because I talk about big babies there, because guesstimations are guesstimations, not estimations. And so there is a little bit of margin of error, but if you're looking at, and they find out that you have a 12-pound baby in there, you're likely looking at a big baby, and that can contribute to a slower labor and potentially the baby not fitting, which again is just common sense. So those are some of the things that are going to weigh either side. My biggest tip for you guys is to really do the research ahead of time, choose the right provider, and then let go of the first birth and really walk into this one fully committed to pursuing that vaginal birth. Understanding that a lot of times the place where you had the C-section called with the first birth, like maybe you got to 6 centimeters and that's when things started going downhill from there and you didn't dilate and that's where they called the C-section, expect you to potentially hit an emotional roller coaster / mountain in front of you at that point. It is hard to get past the hump of where you left off with your first. Recognize that this is a completely different scenario. Partners, care teams, doulas, walk with them and understand that when they get to that point where they called the C-section the last time, they're gonna need more support, they're gonna need more reassurance, and to continue to help them pursue that vaginal birth, they're gonna need some extra push potentially at that point. Mamas, commit to it and then stick with it. Understand that labor is long, no matter how long it takes, so long as your baby looks good, your provider is still on board, they are still saying that you and baby are safe, that in general, VBAC is a reasonable option, that it is possible, and those that do pursue it, once again, are looking at up to about an 80% success rate depending on the environment that you're delivering in. So trust in that body, trust in your baby. do all the things to set you up, and then let go of the rest. And then give yourself so much grace, as it will go a little bit different than you anticipate, right? Just like life goes differently than we anticipate. Flex and flow along the way. And then really what I see a lot of times is that VBAC can be super healing for you, especially if you've had that traumatic birth memory. As you push through those humps and the hard scenarios or the decisions that you have to make along the way, that you really can be empowered to make your own decisions and really enjoy the process as being new and fresh and beautiful in its own way with this baby. Hopefully more connected and more in love with each other, and really getting that positive birth memory out of it. That's my pep talk for your VBAC. I genuinely believe in you guys. You are healthy, you are capable, you can do it. I am cheering you on from over here, and I would love to hear when you have those successful VBACs out there. Thanks everyone for being with me here today. I hope that gave you some insight, and I hope that helps encourage you when you're pursuing that VBAC, that you can do all the right things, and then the rest you just have to let go of and trust in your body and your baby, which is actually hopefully very freeing for you. If you have any other questions related to VBAC or other things, throw them in the comment box down below. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, because that's how I'm communicating with you guys regularly. As there are new things that come up or new things to anticipate, or when I'm filming a video, you can know all about it there. If you're looking for education, support, or birth coaching for anyone, anywhere, you can go to bundlebirth.com and get more information there. Until next time, don't forget to flex and flow, and I will talk to you soon. Bye. Now it's time to get weird. But before I do that, don't get having a successful VBAC. Coffee and questions video. Have realistic expectations. Why am I holding my finger like this? That's weird. There's a lot to know about VBAC. Nah. And I'm shedding. Walk birth is very rewarding, but in all reasons, considerations, Sarah Lavonne. The most important thing that I would say is the most important thing, definitely mention, hello. That's all. See ya.